Hello, I'm Jerry Ford. I'm going to read a story from this book here. This is called The Scary States of America, 50 Weird and Terrifying Stories, one from each state, based on true events, by Michael Teitelbaum. Okay? My wife picked out the next state to read about. She picked out New Mexico. Let's see what's coming out of New Mexico. Okay, page 168. The Roswell incident. Sometimes I just get lucky. For months, the online paranormal community had been buzzing about the huge convention of UFO enthusiasts. In parentheses, maybe they thought they'd offend someone by calling us UFO freaks. That was going to take place in Roswell, New Mexico. Yep, Roswell, the mecca of UFO lore, the site of a crashed UFO in 1947, from which alien bodies were recovered. Sure, the government did its best to convince the public that there was no spaceship or aliens, but those who were actually there know better. Anyway, like I said, sometimes I'm lucky. I got to go to the convention. And as it turned out, so did a bunch of my paranormal obsessed buddies. I couldn't believe it. Just being in Roswell was amazing, and the UFO convention was turning into a reunion for me and my online pals. I had never met most of them face to face, though we'd been communicating for a long time. There was Freak Boy from Arkansas, who had told me about shadow people. "Dude, cool to meet you," Freak Boy said when we met, as planned under the giant replica of the crashed Roswell ship. "You're shorter than I pictured." "Thanks," I said, rolling my eyes. These were, after all, my friends. Not the most socially gifted crowd you'll ever meet. I felt a hand tap me on the shoulder and jumped in surprise. "Just like old times, huh?" Ghost Hunter?" said a familiar voice from behind me, still jumpy. Goth girl," I shouted, unable to keep from smiling. "Or should I call you Luann?" She punched me in the arm, just like old times. Indeed, Goth Girl and I had shared a bizarre afternoon in a cemetery in her Mississippi hometown. I watched as a strange-looking figure made his way through the noisy crowd. The Cubs baseball cap and "Don't Trust the Government" t-shirt gave him away. Okay. Cub Maniac. "Cub Maniac," I cried, herding the new arrival into our ever-expanding group. "Been to any games lately?" Did the government cover up the Roswell incident?" My friend from Illinois replied. "Of course. I think baseball is stupid," Goth Girl said under her breath. I could tell we were all going to get along famously. "Check out this weirdo," Freak Boy said, pointing to a kid wearing a silver space suit and mask. Look who's talking, I thought. The kid pulled off the mask. "Jason, it's me, Bizarro Boy, from New Hampshire," he said, extending a foil-wrapped hand. "Cool costume, huh?" "Yeah, for a dork," Freak Boy muttered. "I think the Star Trek convention is next door. This place is for serious paranormal enthusiasts only. Maybe this reunion wasn't such a great idea after all." Fortunately, I was saved by the sudden appearance of a tall, skinny kid wearing a cowboy hat. "You gotta be Cowboy D, right?" I asked, bringing him into the group. Nice to meet you. Introductions were made all around. Cowboy D sent me a creepy story about cattle mutilation on his dad's farm in Montana. Nice to meet you guys, Cowboy D said. Y'all here 'cause you're into the paranormal? No, we're the U.S. Olympic hockey team, snapped Goth Girl. We're here for the ice capades. When is the presentation going to start? I wondered anxiously. Oh, sorry, that's a thought. When is the presentation going to start? I wondered anxiously. Any more of your geek squad coming, Ghost Hunter? Goth Girl asked, rolling her dark eyes. Your attention, please, came an announcement over the convention hall's PA system. Please find your seats. The presentation is about to begin. Thank God, I thought. My little fan club and I made our way into a large tent. We took our seats and listened as some old guy told the story of the 1947 UFO crash in Roswell. The first thing the speaker said was, "These are the facts as we have generally come to accept them. They are now a matter of public record." Guess he's trying not to get sued. Anyway, here's what I learned. The summer of 1947 was a particularly active one for UFO sightings throughout the United States. During the first few days of July of that year, Army intelligence had been tracking a UFO on radar in southern New Mexico. Then, on the night of July 4th, 1947, the radar indicated that whatever they were tracking had crashed to Earth 30 to 40 miles northwest of Roswell. On July 5th, a local rancher named W.W. Mack Brazel rode out onto his property on horseback to check on his sheep after a violent thunderstorm. Brazel came upon strange-looking pieces of metal debris, which were scattered over a large area. He then found a long but shallow trench carved into the ground that extended for a few hundred feet. Brazel had never seen any metal quite like these pieces. He dragged them to a nearby storage shed on his land and shared his discovery with some neighbors who thought the wreckage might be from a UFO or a government project. They suggested that Brazel report the incident to the local sheriff. A couple of days later, Brazel drove into Roswell and reported the incident to Sheriff George Wilcox. Wilcox passed the report along to intelligence officer Major Jesse Marcel of the 509 Bomb Group, who was stationed at a nearby Army base. Major Marcel left the base to investigate Brazel's story. On July 6th, Major Marcel and Senior Counterintelligence Corps CIC Agent Captain Sheridan Cavett visited Brazel. The rancher showed them a large piece of the debris that had been dragged from the pasture. The officer spent the night on Brazel's ranch. The following morning, Major Marcel visited the debris field that Brazel had discovered. Marcel reported that something must have exploded above the ground and fell. As Brazel, Cavett, and Marcel surveyed the field, Marcel tried to determine from which direction the object had come. Marcel also reported that the debris was strewn over a wide area, I guess maybe 3/4 of a mile long and a few hundred feet wide. He held a flame from a cigarette lighter up to small bits of metal that he found among the debris to see if they would burn or blacken. They did neither. Along with metal pieces, Marcel also found what he described as weightless I-beam-like structures that were 3/8 by a 1/4 inch long. He could not bend or break these mysterious rods. Some of these I-beams had unfamiliar characters written on them in 2 colors. Marcel also described metal debris that was only the thickness of tinfoil. The material also seemed indestructible. Marcel filled his staff car with the debris, then left then left, stopping by his house on the way back to the base to show his family what he had discovered. I didn't know what we were picking up, he told them. I still don't know what it was. It could not have been part of an aircraft or any kind of weather balloon. I've seen rockets sent up at the at the White Sands testing grounds. It definitely was not part of an aircraft or missile or rocket. His son, Jesse Jr., described the foil and I-beams as purple. Strange never saw anything like it. Strange never saw anything like it. Different geometric shapes and circles. His father told Jesse that he thought he had found the wreckage of a crashed flying saucer. Marcel immediately ordered the crash site closed to the public while the wreckage was cleared by the military. On July 8th, a press release was issued by Lieutenant Walter G. Hout, Public Information Officer at the Roswell Army Air Base, under orders from the commander of the 509 Bomb Group at Roswell, Colonel William Blanchard. At 11 that morning, the press release was sent to 2 local radio stations and the local newspaper, the Roswell Daily Record. By 2:30 that afternoon, the story was out on the AP wire service and spread all around the country. The press release said, "The Army Air Forces here today announced a flying disc had been found." The headline at the late edition of the July 8, 1947 issue of the Roswell Daily Record read, RAAF, Roswell Army Airfield, captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. The story went on to say, the intelligence officer of the 509 Bomb Group at Roswell Army Airfield announced at noon today that the field has come into possession of a flying saucer. According to information released by the department over authority of Major J.A. Marcel, intelligence officer, the disc was discovered on a ranch in the Roswell vicinity after an unidentified rancher had notified Sheriff George Wilcox that he had found the instrument on his premises. But the following day, July 9th, the first press release was canceled and called a mistake. A second press release was sent out, stating that the 509 Bomb Group had mistakenly identified a weather balloon as the wreckage of a flying saucer. While all this was happening, Glenn Dennis, a mortician working at the Ballard Funeral Home in Roswell, received a curious phone call from the morgue at the airfield. The mortuary officer there asked Dennis if he knew where he could find some small, hermetically sealed coffins. He also requested information about how to preserve bodies that had been exposed to the elements for a few days without contaminating the tissue. Someone must have found and removed bodies there, though to this day nobody knows who picked them up. It wasn't Major Marcel. Glenn Dennis drove out to the base hospital that evening. When he arrived, he saw large pieces of metal wreckage sticking out of the back of a military ambulance. One thin piece had strange engraved markings on it. When Dennis tried to enter the hospital to keep an appointment he made with the nurse to discuss the coffins, he was forced to leave by military police. The next day, he met with the nurse off the base. She told Dennis about the unusual bodies being held in the hospital and drew pictures of them for him. Within a few days of this meeting, the nurse was transferred to England. Her whereabouts remain unknown. Colonel Blanchard, Major Marcel's commanding officer, sent Marcel to see General Roger Rainey, commanding officer of the 8th Air Force at Carswell, Fort Worth Army Airfield. Marcel brought some pieces of the wreckage, which Colonel Blanchard admitted were unlike anything he had ever seen, to show to General Rainey. Marcel placed the wreckage in the general's office before the general showed up for their meeting. When General Rainey arrived, he told Major Marcel that he wanted to be shown on a map the exact location where the wreckage was found. The two officers left the general's office and went to the base's map room. When they returned, the wreckage Marcel had brought was gone. In its place were pieces of a weather balloon. General Ramey said that he recognized the remains as being part of a weather balloon. The true evidence had vanished. Brigadier General Thomas Dubose, the chief of staff of the 8th Air Force, later said, the whole balloon part was a cover story. That was the part of the story we were told to give to the public and the news. From that day on, the military tried to convince the news media that the objects found near Roswell in July 1947 were nothing more than the wreckage of an ordinary weather balloon. The remainder of the wreckage in Roswell was crated and stored in a hangar. The Army sent out another press release which said, reports of flying saucers whizzing through the sky fell off sharply today as the Army and the Navy began a concentrated campaign to stop the rumors. The release also explained that Army Air Force headquarters in Washington had delivered a blistering rebuke to the officers at Roswell. The presentation ended. I rose to my feet along with everyone else in the hall and applauded loudly. Of course, I'd love to get into the base at Roswell and see what the Army is hiding in those crates and coffins. Who wouldn't? It's obvious to me that General Ramey switched the real UFO wreckage with some weather balloon pieces and was covering up the truth. While most people connected to the case are long gone, I'm sure the evidence of a large cover-up is locked up in Roswell. I only hope that someday the truth is revealed. That was so cool, said Cub Maniac, proudly pointing to his Don't Trust the Government t-shirt. Thanks for telling me about this, dude. I gotta go. My mom's waiting for me back at the hotel. I'll see you online, Jason. I said goodbye to my friends and got another punch in the arm from Goth Girl. Maybe we could do a little investigating of our own while we're here, she said mischievously. We could get to the bottom of this Roswell thing once and for all. What do you say? I thought you'd never ask, I replied. All right. There you go. That was a longer story right there. Okay. Pretty interesting stuff, huh? The scary states of America, New Mexico. If y'all collect this kind of stuff, the paranormal books and paraphernalia and all that kind of stuff, and you want one of these books for your collection, see about purchasing you one. That always supports the author, and they always appreciate it, I'm sure. I thank you for watching. I appreciate that, and we will see you on the next one.